All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Mid-Curve Podcast. It is Tuesday, May 9th at 5:16 p.m. PST, 8:16 EST, and whatever time it is, whatever part of the world you live in. My name is Fonky Donk, aka Gavin Purcell. I am a member of Mid-Curve, and my background comes from mostly media and all sorts of other stuff, and I'm going to let everybody introduce themselves on this podcast. If you know us, if you're a family member and you're listening to us, if you're one of our smaller audience who've gotten to be regulars on our podcast listening to us, welcome. And I'm just going to go around the table and see who we got. I want to start with Sadie, who's not here that often, but is here today. Sadie, you want to do a quick intro for yourself before we jump in?
Sure. Hey, everyone. Thank you for having me back. I work in TradFi. I work in financial services private equity, so I buy and sell financial services companies. And on the side, or really primarily at this point, I buy coins with names like Goner.
Okay, great. We'll get into that in a second. Eric, what about yourself? You want to introduce yourself real quick?
Hey guys, Eric, former TradFi weirdo, current crypto weirdo. Yeah.
Great. Grant?
Hey folks, my name is Grant. I come from the traditional consulting world, and the weirdest thing I've bought this week is probably butter. Yeah.
Oh, I completely missed butter. Is it gone now? Did it tank?
It died immediately.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I have no idea. I bought and sold on the same day.
Welcome to the wonderful world of the shitcoin meta. Salty, what about you?
Hey, I thought butter had a little life. Salty. Researcher, scientist, person. If it's shitcoin, we're all doing shitcoins. You got a shitcoin. But just to be cool and different, I'm on the Bitcoin shitcoin narrative. So ERC, ORD. Haven't lost this insane amount of money on it yet. Somehow, a little more sticking power over there.
Yeah, I'm so curious about this because the one story I've heard is there's a person that we all know who seems to have made 7 figures on these, and I don't fully understand what's going on in that space, so I want to dig in. But we should probably set the table here first and talk about what the fuck is happening in this space because, man, has it been insane. It has been a crazy week. Lots of opportunities to make money in a much weirder, much faster, in some ways much more dangerous way than traditional kind of way that we're used to, which I think if I were gonna kind of like say the ways that the people in this group have made money, it's like, kind of aping into alts in the right places, or perhaps looking for NFTs that are in the right direction, or new NFTs that are coming out are interesting. None of that is happening right now. Now we are buying things based entirely on their name, on their Twitter handle, and what the potential people buying in might look like, but maybe other aspects of it. But really, it is meme season at the forefront. And it's quite interesting. Like, obviously, last week we did the show. Turbo had just taken off, which we had talked about a little bit. And now we've had a bunch more things. I think we've seen kind of a correction over the last couple of days significantly. And I think many people think that we may be at the end of this. I don't know. Maybe I'll start there. Eric, what is your take on this? Do you think we are seeing the dying stages of the shitcoin meta and it's over, or do you think this is going to go on for a little while longer?
I mean, it's just becoming really, really saturated, right? I think Pepe and Turbo and some of these other points like warped people's perception of reality. And so now we've gone through this game where you're like ape everything, right? All the name coins, Ben, Jim, Mike, Mark, like whatever, we're kind of just going down.
By the way, we fully gotten through all the men's 4-letter names? I think we should think about, what about Dave? Dave would be a good coin. Let's do Dave.
John, Steve. We're just gonna go increasingly more like esoteric names, and by the end of this meta, like we'll be aping into like Tchaikovsky or something insane.
Again, everything you mentioned, Eric, seems reasonable to me. That's how fucking crazy this is.
Yeah, but it almost just feels like, like DeFi summer, you kind of were doing this, like, oh yeah, here's the utility of this coin. Here's you stake it and you earn a rebase and it's the future of finance. And now we kind of just stripped all the pretense. Like, there's no utility to any of this. It's just a casino. So we're kind of just gonna create like these fast games of street dice, and play them on an impromptu basis, and whoever gets fucking holding the bag left holding the bag holds the bag. And it is pure PvP.
Yeah, I was gonna say the thing that I keep thinking about, I mentioned this not that long ago in the Discord, which is just it feels like the half-life of these is starting to shrink a little bit. Now, who knows? I could be completely wrong, but it feels like things are lasting a little less. Sadie, we talked the last time you came on. We talked a little bit about your shitcoin abilities, and you're quite good at it. What are you feeling about right now in this space, and like what are you looking at? What do you see a world where, like, I mean, people are still making money clearly right now. I mean, Goner is, as we look, Goner is still going up. And is this a world where we're going to be able to kind of continue to participate, or do you see this falling off soon?
Sort of two minds about it. On the one hand, I think there's like shitcoin meta is just everything will be shitcoin meta. And to Eric's point, I saw a tweet a couple weeks ago that said shitcoins are just like NFTs but honest. And and I like that. And I think the future of this is memes. Like everything's a meme. So like let's just make it like a guy's name and not like pretend to be the future of finance. On the other hand, I think not unlike the other segment, there have been just a ton of dollars lost to MEV and gas. And
Yeah.
I have to imagine that takes a toll at some point, unless we feel like we're reloading participants in the space, quicker than that's being diluted.
Yeah, I'm really curious about that too. Like this idea of are the I always think of these like bros that have like their hands that go up and be like, it's on, it's on. They like yell out to all the people that they yelled out to before, and suddenly all these other people come rushing into the space. Like, obviously Pepe got up to a $1.7 billion market cap. Turbo, I think, got to 200 million. Mong, which I still can't believe Mong, which was a joke of a mint from like 9 months ago, Mong has turned into was a $200 million market cap. Have all kind of gone crazy. I don't know, Grant. What's your take? Do you feel like this is anybody new coming in, or people coming back for this in this space, or is this just all the players that have been here all kind of like coming into one space to play?
I would highly doubt any new entrants are coming in. I guess the counter to that opinion would just be, the headlines, and that's why I think, we probably haven't hit top, despite some of us wanting it desperately for it to be, just for the sake of like being able to use the chain properly, for God's sakes. Like the headlines on like Yahoo Finance and whatever else are still like, oh, people are making 10,000x on Pepe and
yeah,
and all this other stuff. So until it becomes like to Sadie's point, like, oh, like someone sibbled 100 mints of other side and people lost 8 figures in gas alone on one night. Like, there's still like participants greedy or dumb enough to continue this charade, right?
Grant always brings the heat.
Yeah, and as someone who's admittedly retail, like I can't control the way the market flows. I'm just gonna participate in this liquid clown game until it ends.
Yeah, I mean, it feels to me a lot like that. Okay, so we're in the middle of this shitcoin meta. It is quite interesting, and the fascinating thing to me has been like I don't know if you guys have felt this way, but I have not looked at NFTs. Like I just brought up Blur for the first time in like 3 days. Like it feels like NFTs are on ice for the foreseeable future. But I know that there's some people that are looking at stuff. Is anybody in this group, the people that are here, is anybody like shopping right now, or are we just all not convinced that they've got any juice in them for a while? Does anybody? I would normally call on somebody, but I'm not sure if anybody has a strong thought on this.
I mean, I've been shopping for NFTs. You still have these farming dumps that you can capitalize off of. Ladies are doing pretty good. So I think there's like pockets of opportunity, and the interesting of Blend is that you can do this on a relatively capital light basis. And so I'm kind of buying some things on like 30-40% down with like a 60% LTV loan and I'm paying 0% interest. So
Interesting.
it just, with it's a relatively low cost of carry. And so you can go into higher conviction plays and kind of just sit in a while and there's just really like, like obviously the values will fluctuate and you can lose money, but you're not paying 20-30% interest to kind of stay in the trade. And that is actually like a big deal in my mind because it relieves a lot of, the opportunity cost of capital with having your ETH in a liquid JPEG. And now you can
Right.
have less of your ETH in liquid JPEG and get a heavily subsidized loan on Blend, and just write it out.
That's interesting. So, I mean, I think I moved on from the shitcoin space maybe a little too fast, but also like I do want to think about what that means to be like. Do you? I guess what I'm trying to get with that is that I mean, Eric or most people on here are probably not buying and holding JPEGs for long-term investment necessarily, but I keep looking at something like Punks, right, which feels like at this point, which I think is still sitting under 50, a pretty interesting long-term investment. But I guess what I was asking before is like, are any of these JPEGs feeling like they are buys here for more than a short-term play where you're going to kind of try to move it up? Like, I mean, I think Eric, what you're talking about is Miladies as something that you kind of like you buy on the short term, but you're not looking to kind of like you're not trying to hold them for any sort of significant amount of time. If somebody were to say like, okay, I think this might be a good time to buy a Punk because I think that in a year from now it's going to be worth something. Do you feel like we're entering a period where we're at a bottom there, or do you feel like we still have some farther to go?
Oh, that I honestly don't know. I think we'll have probably a lot farther to go on a bunch of collections. Just my gut feel.
Yeah,
'Cause
that's my
it
gut feel too.
yeah.
It feels like I feel like that there's another down leg still happening in the NFT space, but I have no idea. This is the thing that feels so confusing to me right now because none of the attention is on it right now, and yet it seems to have found some sort of a bottom, which is interesting to me. At least for the top, whatever 5 to 7 collections. Grant, are you in any NFTs? I mean, obviously, I'm assuming you're still in Azuki's, but are you in any other NFTs right now?
Yeah, I've, reasonably sized bags and a few other collections. People are bored and playing with shitcoins because, well, yeah, there's been no good developments, right? Like the ones that have retained, some semblance of floor stability and I really don't want to use the word, but I guess community are just slow playing everything, right? From art reveals to potential drops to hell, even like fundraising announcements. They'll tease for like 2 or 3 months, like an entire quarter before they drop anything. As to your question, I don't really. I mean, like my stock capital to play in this game is smaller, so I am obsessed with picking bottoms, unfortunately. But if you have more capital than me, and you truly believe some assets have have Lindy properties and are actual art, then none of this should phase you, right? And I guess I'll talk about it from my perspective, right? Like in comparison to when I first started, which was like the mid to late tail end of the bull market, like I feel better because I think the L1 market and even some of the surrounding side chains have better infrastructure around it. And me personally, I think I know the lay of the land better, like who's a double-edged sword and who I can count on in times of need. And I just feel more ready for whatever the next cycle is going to be. I can see how it's challenging for a newcomer, but I think trial by fire is what crypto is all about, right? So I'm not super concerned, right? I think it's just waiting for the cycle of liquidity to play out because right now it just sucks to be participating in any kind of risk market essentially.
Yeah, that makes sense. Sadie, what about you? I know you're not a person that really buys and holds NFTs at all, but are you looking at NFTs at any sort of investment level here because of where they're at compared to shitcoins?
So I have a theory about this, which is that Blur did more lending volume on NFTs, I think, this week than every other marketplace combined. And we're in a shitcoin meta where people are throwing tons of dollars at shitcoins. And I have a feeling I know where those dollars are coming from.
That makes
and
sense.
so I think there will be a buying opportunity.
I mean, what's the downside? The loan is 0% interest. You can't lose. It's impossible.
Isn't it callable anytime? I don't understand. But anyway, I think NFTs go lower.
Yeah. Yeah, it's callable after 24 hours. So basically, after 24 hours, anyone can say, "Give me my money," and then you go into the auction process, and if it's no one else wants to pick up your loan, you get liquidated, and they break your legs. So, but right now, it's good because everyone's farming the airdrop incentives, and so there's a lot of appetite to actually pick up loans, or you can just very very easily refi, which is kind of what I've been doing when my loans get called.
So what are you doing with that ETH, Eric, that you're getting out of the loan?
Uh, I'm not really putting it into shitcoins. I am looping it a bit in the sense that I can basically pay off all of the loans if I have to. But I'm just kind of keeping it light as to not tie up capital in case I need it for something else. My intent is that when some of the lending vaults do go live later this month, to roll a positive carry trade by just using the NFTs for financing and deploying the proceeds into one of these vaults where I can earn some interest. So instead of just like borrowing at zero, I'm actually borrowing to earn like 10-15%.
I admire that, and it is a lot more work that I want to do, but I know that's why you end up doing better than I do in the long run anyway, because that is a smart play. It is so much to think about in terms of the space of doing this stuff. But that's great. I think that will, in general, make us a better, happier NFT market. Hopefully, if there's that stuff available.
Yeah, but I 100% agree with Sadie. Like, people are taking out these fucking loans to
Go to
ape into
shitcoins.
shitcoins, and when
Yeah.
that inevitably ends and they can't pay back the loans, we can only go in one direction.
Yes, 100%. And it will inevitably end. And I think we're not that far away from the end. I think there was a story about the guy who, this is not a loan, but there was a guy who sold an ape at like 45, put it all into Pepe, and that money is now worth 25. So that is a story that you will probably see play out a number of times as people try to chase gains over the next 3 to 5 days. Like, we'll see how much longer we have of this, 3 to 5 days. I mean, there's a world. Okay, so the other thing I think we should transition into, which is the big thing that a lot of people are waiting on, I think, is tomorrow's big financial news. I think that there's a lot of people unaware and still trying to figure out like what's going to come out of the CPI tomorrow. What's your take on this? And is there any sort of sense in the TradFi markets as to where people are expecting this to go?
Yeah, I think people expect it to come in hot. No, with that being, because if you see on the probability of a rate increase, you've seen the probabilities of a June increase start to creep up. So there is definitely a lot of risk aversion, I feel like, going into this print. Simply because, like, if you get a hot CPI print, it reinforces the need for higher rates for longer, undermines the narrative that we're kind of currently in, which is, hey, like, we gotta loosen up or else we're gonna have a full scale banking crisis, yada yada yada. But it just, honestly, like, I don't know. I don't really think in the long run it matters. I just it just trading on these crazy prints when there's so many eyeballs on them is generally speaking not positive EV for most.
Yeah.
And so my going thing is yeah, like, fuck, it probably comes in hot. And then it just sort of makes the narrative more complicated. Maybe we do get another increase in June, there's more tightening, but and then like every 3 weeks we'll get like another regional bank that kind of goes down because the regional banks kind of don't work right now in a higher interest rate environment. And honestly, they probably don't need to exist.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so then you kind of go into the secular narrative, which goes back to the Balaji thing, which is, hey, like, You're gonna keep the rates longer, but you're just gonna expand the balance sheet on the back end and pump money into the system that way. And that creates debasement of the US dollar, yada yada yada, blah blah blah. It just I think like overall, like if you're trying to get a understanding of what the impact of a hot CPI print is on your shitcoins, seek help. But like I think like I don't honestly I don't think this materially changes the overall trajectory of things.
Yeah, I mean, my feeling with shitcoins is when you look at all the stuff that's going on right now, the only thing that seems like it really affects it to me is the price of ETH and Bitcoin, because I think this is just me in a non-traditional, common sense wisdom sort of way, looking at when ETH was moving significantly up or at least stable up. That was what kind of drove a lot of the space, and then we had a little bit of a dip on ETH and Bitcoin. And so much of the world in this space is reactionary that people, I think, got all freaked out about stuff. I don't know. Grant, I feel like you're a good person to come to for the pessimistic take in general, but you've also been expecting there to be a pretty decent sized sell off at some point. Are you expecting that to be the case coming up here? What is your kind of take on where the ETH and Bitcoin world lives in comparison to the TradFi stuff?
Sorry, I've been spending the past 3 minutes looking for the DEX tools link for CPI, so I'm not really sure what you want from me.
Oh my god!
I don't have a take for this week really, but yeah, I'm expecting second half of this year to be just a rough ride, and it might be like the last bit of the pain or the bear market, and I'm just purely going off like the average length of cycles here. That's it. Like every time we think something is different from history, it's not, right? So that's how I'm going to treat it basically.
Well, so here's a question I have for you, because I'm so curious. It feels like to me this shitcoin run feels weirdly a lot like the SHIB SafeMoon shitcoin run, minus like obviously the economy was in a lot better shape. Is there any world in which like this shitcoin run does what that did in my when watching from afar, which kind of led to this NFT run? Or do we feel like that we're just in such a shittier place from the overall cycle that doesn't seem even remotely possible?
If it goes on long enough that the numbers get really big and people make just a shit ton of money, then ironically, I think that yields to, I don't know, an NFT run or an alt season or flows back to the majors. What you don't want is like a small shitcoin season where everyone loses their money, but no new entrants come in. The longer it goes, I think the more, the better your odds.
Right. And I guess that goes back to what we were saying earlier about the narratives that kind of like leak out into the main world. It's interesting. One of the things that I kept thinking was going to happen with Turbo, which is why I was pretty bullish on it in the beginning. It's still done really well, obviously, but like I really believe that Turbo was going to have a mainstream narrative where you had this guy who created this coin on his own with ChatGPT, and that it was going to get picked up and put into like all sorts of places. And, according to him, I think today he had tweeted something like, I can't believe about the financial and mainstream press I'm doing on this token. So who knows, maybe something's still to come out, but it's clearly not the same press that stuff got in 2021, which was obviously the world had not been exposed to crypto at large. I assume that most of you agree with this, and I think we talked a little bit about this last time, but that the mainstream story of crypto is still very tainted and doesn't seem like it's cleaned off in any sort of way. I mean, I would also imagine that if people are making money hand over fist, that there would be enough of a narrative there. But I don't know, Eric, do you think that there's a sense that the mainstream press is like avoiding crypto stories, even if they're like the ones from 2021?
Yeah, I think it's also a point in time thing, right? Like when crypto came onto the scene in 2021, it wasn't playing like it was the dominant narrative. It was like fintech summer. People were like, oh, this is the future of finance. The blockchain is a revolutionary technology. It's hitting critical mass, right? And you've had basically like every crypto Web3 startup like go vertical in the private or public market. You know, Coinbase came out at what, like $200 or some ridiculous number,
Yeah.
right? And that point, like, you know, SBF was this like generational wunderkind who kind of started this exchange, and is on track to become like one of the richest, you know, people in their 30s. And so the setup there is like, okay, like, you know, this is a technological breakthrough, and you have like the smartest minds in the world working on it. Now, to Grant's point, we kind of just fucking look like a joke. Like, it's just a clown show, right? Like, every major, you know, talking head, like figurehead from the last cycle has basically been publicly pants, and then proceeded to be tarred and feathered. A lot of people have lost money, and I think this mentality, like to Sadie's point of like, you know, when it's up only, right? Like, it's just positive mental reinforcement. And so when you make money, you're gonna roll it back into the casino and make more money, and that creates reflexivity, which creates kind of these manias where like prices just spike, right? And now I think
Right.
like everyone that's in the space has been burnt. We don't really have new real entrants. So the first time somebody hits like a win, their incentive is to take profit, and so there is a lot more rational profit taking in these situations, and I think that acts as like a big suppressor, on you know, on the shitcoin meta, in terms of like how far these things can go. Like, obviously, like Pepe still went to like insane heights, right? But it's a like a, you know, it's a far cry from like, I don't know what, like the $80 billion that Doge
Yeah.
went to during the prior
Yeah.
peak. And so we're doing this on a smaller scale because you know, everyone now knows, like, you know, what is gold, like, doesn't last forever, and so we take money off the table.
Yeah, I think that's actually a really interesting point, which is that enough people have been burnt in the last year on different things that they're not willing to just kind of double down and roll the dice on things. They're being much more conservative, weirdly, and those that aren't are getting wrecked pretty bad. Okay, well, I think there is weirdly like one of those weeks where, like, because the shitcoin thing is dominated so much, I guess we might as well ask. Okay, this is a stupid question, but I'll answer it first so everybody feels fine with answering it. And my question is going to be is when you see a shitcoin the first time, what about it draws you in and why? And I will tell you this is my general strategy for shitcoins, and it's probably pretty stupid, but I oftentimes will see or find a name. The name is a big thing. I have a set, after having been in this space for a couple of years, I have a pretty decent understanding of like, okay, this name's happened before, this has been done before, this is interesting, this is not interesting. And then I will go to see if the Twitter exists. If the Twitter exists, it's a +1 for me. If the Twitter does not exist, it's a definite, probably like a -1. And then I basically decide pretty quickly after watching from, like, you know, it just starting to say like a $25,000 to $50,000 market cap, if it's something that's interesting to me without finding out from other people. And then I'll put money in it. And then those kind of things, 9 out of 10 of them rug. And the one that doesn't usually does okay. And then the other side of this is obviously hearing from people who are interesting and have been following different tokens or some sort of pre-sale. But the name is often the thing that drives it for me, which sounds insane. And if anybody else invested based on names, it seems crazy, but that is my process. Sadie, what about a shitcoin draws you in? Like when you're looking and you're seeing different kinds of shitcoins, what is the thing or things that most stand out to you, and what makes you buy?
So I think you covered it pretty well. The one thing I would add is if the name is in lowercase letters, that's an immediate no.
Interesting.
That's Rug Central. Also, another shitcoin ick is if they put the $ in the name.
Yes. Big ick.
That's
big
like
ick.
absolutely not. Do not do that.
Triple ick.
Triple ick. Last, read-only telegrams. You're making me go to Twitter is read-only telegram. Just put it there.
I would also say there's things that I've learned going into telegrams that are real icks as well. One big ick is a Telegram that does not have any lock on it whatsoever when you first appear, because that just shows you that people do not know what they're doing. They have zero idea what's happening. The other thing is, a read-only Telegram is a very good sign of a rug, unless it's a token that was like crazy hyped and is real. Because generally a read-only Telegram means that they don't want people talking shit about them at the time. So I totally agree. Grant, what about you? What do you look for in a good shitcoin? What is your like go-to when you see something you're going to buy no matter what?
I'm the wrong person to ask. I've mid-curved the last couple of weeks pretty hard. So I think it's just like simple enough. Like Cappy, I think is like probably the best example. Like if any of you use TikTok, like I use it because my girlfriend sends me like cat videos and capybara videos, and capybara videos are just unavoidable. Like for whatever reason, like the algorithm just sicks them on you, and you're like, oh, they're kind of cute, like large dog-sized rodents. And dropping something that's like subliminally in your mind is, I think probably the best way to go for shitcoins.
All right, so there we go. Subliminal messages from things that you see on TikTok. That's a good sign. And Eric, what about you? Is there something in a shitcoin that gets you to decide to buy it specifically?
No, not really. I'm not the right person to ask this question.
I love that we have these incredibly smart traditional finance people who have made a shit ton of money off of big investments. And now you've got people like aping into something called Ralph. You know what I mean? It's called Ralph, and it's a like a stick figure drawing of a guy throwing up, and that's why it's going to work, because it's an incredible meme, and Ralph to the moon, essentially. It's one of the weirdest, but honestly, like it is one of the more fun times in this space, because it's like somebody said, I can't remember who said it earlier, but it is like you just are kind of throwing all the rules out the window. You're just like, well, let's see what happens here. Let's see how this one goes. And then I think the advice I would also give is like, I every once in a while it makes sense to hold on to something for a long time, but I think the smartest people probably in this space kind of dip in and dip out of these relatively quickly. But the hardest other thing is like, that's where the biggest wins can come from sometimes too, if you just hold on to something for an irrationally long amount of time. I think that's kind of it for this episode, because there's not a crazy amount of stuff else to talk about. Does anybody else want to say anything before we go? Because I feel like we're just in the middle of this season. This is all it is. Feels like all it is, right?
I'll say one thing, Funky, which is that you just made a comparison about TradFi and shitcoins. And yes, the circumstances of those types of investments are very different. But I do think one thing is consistent, which is that culture is alpha. Like stupid is alpha.
Yeah.
Degen is alpha. And respecting culture and understanding it and being a part of it is ultimately how you make money in any market.
That's really interesting. And I think that's a very smart and well-observed point, because this is what we're seeing in reflecting these shitcoins is the culture of Twitter, is the culture of the world that has been created around crypto. So I think that's super smart. I think that's great. Any other last words, Grant or Eric?
Please subscribe to this podcast. I'm very poor because I mid-curved all the shitcoins in the last 2 weeks. Please.
I kind of laugh a little bit because like we made this, they made this shitcoin 4, and it's off like the CZ thing. And I think it's really funny because like in Chinese culture, 4 is like literally the unluckiest number you can have because it rhymes with death. And so like, the CZ is going out, it's like saying 4, and we're all just like rhythmically chanting 4, and an underlying subtext is it like almost makes us look like this just brainwashed like death cult,
Well, it's not that surprising.
And so like if anything does actually happen to Binance, like when we look back, in retrospect, the fact that we were all saying 4 was probably a
bad idea.
Yeah, the canary in the gold mine. But I always get a chuckle when I kind of think about that.
That's great. Well, the funny thing is, as we were on this podcast, Goner went and topped, and then it crashed, pretty much crashed, and now it's on its way back a little bit. So you never know what's going to happen. In the course of 45 minutes to an hour, fortunes can be made, lost, and then made again, and then probably lost again. So why don't y'all join us next week? Hopefully there'll be something else slightly more interesting. Not that this isn't interesting, it's just a very weird thing. Yeah, look at that. The Goner green candle has started, everybody. So welcome back to the wild west of shitcoins in the world of Midcurve. So we'll see y'all next week. Thanks for joining us. Thanks to everybody here. I decided not to ask everybody what they're looking forward to because I assume we're all looking forward to an unusual week of when this is going to end. So we'll talk to everybody else later and see you next week.